Good morning. I am Sylvia McGee, President of the Macon, Georgia chapter of the Links Incorporated. Welcome to Linkages to Life, Our Health Matters. This webinar is sponsored collaboratively by the Macon, Georgia chapter of the Links Incorporated, LifeLinks Georgia, and Be the Match in observance of the inaugural National Minority Donor Awareness Month. This month, through our Links signature program, Linkages to Life, we are raising the banner to bring awareness to organ, eye, and tissue donation and transplantation, as well as promote healthy living and disease prevention. Today, you will hear from several individuals as we discuss the overwhelming need for organ donors, as we provide insight on the donation transplantation process, and you will hear from individuals on the journey. And lastly, you will understand the role health and wellness play in supporting healthy donors and decreasing the need for a transplant. Before we begin our learning session, we want to survey our audience through a poll to determine how many are registered voters. Please complete the poll, and we will share the results on the screen shortly. We're waiting for the results, and we'll share those shortly. Here's the results of the poll. Are you a registered donor? It seems as though we have 88% saying yes, and about 13% saying no. Have you joined the bone marrow registry? We have 25% saying yes, and about 69% saying no, and 6 are not quite sure. So that tells us that we have clearly, in terms of having registered donors, those participating today, we have a strong indication that they are registered, and we really are excited about that. And it tells us that we have a little education to do. Thank you so much for participating in the poll. To facilitate this conversation today, I am pleased to introduce Carla Heath Sands of the Albany, Georgia chapter of the Links Incorporated. Carla is no stranger to the Middle Georgia community. She received her Bachelor of Arts degree in English from Mercer University and began her broadcast career at 13 WMAZ before moving to Albany, where she now appears on WALB News 10. Carla is not only seen on air, but also in the community through her various church, civic, and volunteer roles. Carla, thank you for all that you do in the community and across the state. Now for today's session, I pass the baton to you. Thank you.
One moment. Carla, will you unmute?
Unmute. There we go. So you mean you didn't hear me?
No.
See, the technology is great, but you got to know what you're doing, right? So let me start again. I wanted to say thank you, Sylvia, and the Macon chapter of Links for inviting me to be an important a part of such an important webinar this morning. And what I'd said before is that isn't technology great so that we can link with each other and have discussions, but you got to know which buttons to push. Okay, so there we go. My apologies there. Before we get started, I do have a few housekeeping details for attendee engagement. If you have any questions, please register those using the Q&A feature located in the Zoom toolbar, and we will answer those questions for you later in the program. Also, in case you missed something or if you'd like to share this information with others, this webinar is being recorded and will be posted to the Macon Links Chapter's Facebook and YouTube pages. Okay, all right, well, our country is fighting two pandemics, COVID-19 and situations across our country resulting in the need for the Black Lives Matter movement. These pandemics exposed a reality that many of us have known for a long time. The health disparities that continue to persist in the Black community and the chronic diseases that arise as a result. Sometimes these chronic diseases can progress to a point where a patient needs to receive a life-saving transplant. Now, here to talk about the great need for transplants in the Black community and provide information about donation and transplantation are Aisha Ellen and Stephanie Jackson. First, we will hear from Aisha. She's an education specialist with LifeLink of Georgia. And as an education specialist, she's responsible for bringing community awareness and education about organ, eye, and tissue donation. Welcome to you, Aisha.
Hi, thank you, Carla. Thank you for that introduction. And thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning. As Carla stated, I am going to talk about the importance of organ, eye, and tissue donation within the African-American community. I am with LifeLink of Georgia, and I'm an education specialist. So we're going to move along quickly because we have a lot of important information to share with you all. Next slide, please. So I'm not going to read the entire mission statement of LifeLink. For those who are not familiar with LifeLink, we're a nonprofit organ pyramid organization, which basically means we facilitate the organ donation and transplantation process for the state of Georgia. My role as education specialist for the Multicultural Development Education Program is to go out into the community to educate primarily the African-American community about the importance of organ, eye, and tissue donation. Next slide, please. So our goal today is to provide you all with the knowledge that you need to make an educated, informed decision about organ and tissue donation. And from the poll that was done earlier, it appears that quite a few who are on this webinar today are already registered organ donors. And I thank you for being registered. But still may be some information that even as a registered organ donor that you're not aware of. So hopefully by the end of this webinar, you would have gained more knowledge and insight about organ donation. And for those who are not registered, hopefully by the end of this webinar, you will also consider registering to be an organ, eye, and tissue donor. Next slide. So here's just a few statistics. Currently in the United States, there are over 110,000 men and children who are currently awaiting life-saving transplants. And for those of us who are here in Georgia, there are currently over 4,600 people on the transplant waiting list. Out of that 4,600, 63% are African American. And when you break it down as far as with the kidney transplant waiting list in Georgia, 67% of those who are in need of life-saving kidney transplants are African American. Most of us probably know a family member, a friend, a church member, or someone that we know who is actually currently on dialysis. Those individuals who are on dialysis are in need of life-saving kidney transplants. And as we see within our communities, dialysis centers are popping up even within our neighborhoods. So that shows where the need and the issue is within our community. So just a few other statistics to share with you. Every 10 minutes, a new name added to the transplant waiting list. Even during the time period that we've been on this webinar, someone somewhere has been added to the waiting list. And unfortunately, due to a lack of available organ donors, on average, 20 people die each day awaiting life-saving transplant. One organ donor can potentially save up to 8 lives, and I'll explain that on the next slide. And the organ, eye, and tissue donation, one donor can impact over 50 people. Next slide, please. So this information is broken down for the state of Georgia. This is the waiting list and broken down by ethnicities. There are different ways I can break this waiting list down, but since we're focused on National Minority Donor Awareness Month, I really want everyone to see the statistics that I just shared earlier. This report comes from an organization called UNIOS, which is the United Network of Organ Donors throughout the United States. Their information, not personal information, but they're represented on this list as far as being a candidate awaiting transplant. So as I stated, there are over 4,600 people in Georgia. This data is through August 2nd. That number could be higher as of today, but as of August 2nd, 4,694 candidates are currently on the transplant waiting list in Georgia, waiting for a variety of organs. When you break it down, if you look at the highlights, out of that 4,694, 2,968, 63% are African American. And if you look across, I'm not going to read the whole chart, but if you look across the chart as it breaks it down by organ, you can see on the kidney transplant waiting list, 67% of the kidney transplant waiting list, as I stated earlier, are African American. And then you can see the other organs, liver, pancreas, heart, lungs on the chart as well, on the graph as well. So there's definitely a need within our community. We need more African American donors. And the problem is that we have the greatest need when it comes to waiting, but on the opposite side of that, we are least likely to register to be organ donors because of a lot of fears, myths, and misconceptions that we'll go into in a couple of slides from this. But I want to be able to share those numbers. You can be able to see the discrepancies as far as amongst ethnicities and the high rate of African Americans who are in need of transplant. A lot of it is due to, particularly with kidney, to a lot of health issues, particularly diabetes, type 2 in particular, diabetes, and high blood pressure. Next slide. Okay, so those of you who are registered organ donors, once again, thank you. And you may be wondering, well, what organs can be donated? Earlier, I said that one organ donor has the potential to save up to 8 lives. Excuse me. So the organs that can be donated once we pass away are heart, lungs, liver, pancreas, kidneys, and small intestine. So how does those are 6 organs, how does one organ donor have the potential to save up to 8 lives? Because 2 of those organs, they come in pairs. We have 2 lungs, we have kidneys. Hence, that's how one organ donor can potentially, and remember I said the word potentially, save up to 8 lives. But what else can be donated? Well, when you're registering to be an organ donor, you're actually registered to be an organ, eye, and tissue donor. So cornea can be donated. Why would cornea be needed? Someone could need with a cornea transplant if they were losing their vision. And so a cornea transplant can give them the gift of sight. Also, other tissue that can be donated, skin. Most people don't know skin can be donated. And technically, I know textbook skin is actually an organ, but in case of transplantation purposes, it falls under the tissue category. Why would skin be donated? Thank God for burn victims. Most people don't correlate as far as even skin donation for women who have had breast cancer, who choose the option of reconstructive surgery after having a mastectomy. Sometimes skin grafts are needed for the healing of the wound once that double mastectomy or mastectomy has been done. So there's actually even a connection to breast cancer and skin donation. Also tendons, bones, ligaments, cartilage. If you think about as far as a lot of orthopedic related, sports related injuries, the most common people may think about is an ACL injury that may result in having to have that ligament repaired. Well, that comes through that surgery, that ligament, that comes through a donor, someone who made the decision to give the gift of life. So whereas organ donation is life-saving, tissue donation, we like to say, is life healing or life enhancing. But I also consider tissue donation to also be life. Imagine how your life would be if you were blind. Imagine how your life would be if you couldn't walk, or if you needed a heart valve replaced. Maybe not a heart transplant, but heart valve. So I consider even the tissue donation, even though we consider it healing, life healing, I also consider that life saving as well. Next slide, please. So here are a few myths about organ donation, myths versus fact. And I know we don't have a lot of time. Usually I go into these more in detail. But some of the myths, one of the main ones that I actually hear is people feel that if they are a registered organ donor, that if they are in an accident, their life will not be saved if they're a registered organ donor. And I tell people that is farther from the truth. The healthcare professionals will do everything possible to save a person's life if they're in any type of accident where they have to be rushed to the hospital. It's not until all life-saving efforts have been exhausted and the person has been declared legally brain dead that organ donation is even an option. And in all actuality, your local hospital, your local emergency room, your local trauma center, they're the ones that's determining whether or not a person will be able to be a donor. It's the organ procurement organizations. For Georgia, that would be my organization, LifeLink. Once a person has been declared legally brain dead, then the hospital then reaches out to whatever procurement organization that's responsible for their area. And like I said, in Georgia, it would be LifeLink. And then it would be the OPO, the organ procurement organization, that determines if that person is a candidate for donation or not. So just because a person is a registered organ donor, that does not mean that they will automatically be able to donate. Remember earlier when I said, remember the word potential. When you're registered to be a donor, you're basically stating that if I'm able to donate after my death, I am giving consent to do so. Now, whether or not you will be able to, that will be determined once, by medical professionals once you've passed away. In all actuality, only 1 to 2% of people die in a way that even allows them to be able to be an organ donor. To be an organ donor, you have to die from a brain death related injury or illness in a hospital setting on a ventilator. Now, you may be able to be a tissue donor or a cornea donor, but not an organ donor. So I just wanted to make sure that part was clear, because every day I hear people as far as who are anti-donation, who are skeptical about organ donation. And the main reason that I hear is they feel that if they were injured or sick, admitted into a hospital, that they not get the level of care they deserve to save their lives. And I wanted to really make sure that I stress that is farthest from the truth. If any healthcare professional on the call right now, you know that you took an oath to save and heal lives. And so I just wanted to make that part clear. Other factors that also some people feel like their faith. Some people feel like because of their religious beliefs that they can't register to be organ donors. No, reality is all major religions actually consider donation to be the greatest act of kindness and generosity shared towards human beings. So there are no actual religious restrictions. It does go back to a personal decision. There are no age limitations. Anyone, no matter what health concerns, should sign up to be a donor. There's no age restrictions that require that won't allow you to be a registered organ donor. Let me clear that up. There is, as far as when an individual usually gets their license, that's when they're able to. So at the age of 16, you can make the decision usually with parental consent, to be a registered organ donor. However, the 4,600 that I mentioned in Georgia that are on the waiting list, the 110,000 nationally, some of those are actually children. Some of those are actually pediatric patients. So in the case of a pediatric patient, unfortunately, a child or a baby or an infant has to be a donor for another baby. So in those cases, it's something called second person consent. Someone who is not either of age to be a registered organ donor, or they're just not a registered organ donor at all. If they die in a manner that allows them to be able to donate, there's something called second person consent, where the immediate family member can make that decision on behalf of that individual on whether or not their organs will be donated. So when we're registering on our driver's license, that's first person consent. Someone else has to make the decision for us, and that would have to be an immediate family member, then that would be second person consent. So I also wanted to make sure that everyone was clear in understanding that as well. Next slide, please. And so basically, regardless of when it comes to organ donation, organ and tissue donation, the donor and the recipient have to be of the same, have the same blood type. You have to have the same tissue type. So there is a matching process that's involved. A lot of times there's also geographical factors that's involved. So there are a lot of different things that's involved in process of organ donation. And another thing too that a lot of people are skeptical about when it comes to being an organ donor is they feel that it will change their physical appearance and they will not be able to have an open casket funeral. You can have an open casket funeral if you are an organ and tissue donor. The process is done in a very respectable way. The body is treated with care, respect, and dignity. And so that is a myth when individuals say if you're an organ donor, organ and tissue donor, you cannot have an open casket funeral. That is a myth. Slide, please. So how do you register? Most people register when they get their driver's license. It's just as simple as checking yes or no on that driver's license application. Those who are not registered, there are a couple of other ways you can register. Right now, the links nationally through their program, Linkages to Life, actually has a registration drive. So you can go to www.registerme.org/linkages to life, and you can register that way. Or you can contact LifeLink, and I'll be sharing my information at the end for a registry card. Next slide. Other ways you can help those who are currently registered. You may be thinking, okay, I've done my part, and yes, you have. And once again, thank you for registering to be an organ donor. But there are also other ways you can help partner with LifeLink, just like the links are doing now, to bring awareness within our communities. You can host a donor registration drive or information table at your next event or health fair. I know in the season of COVID-19 right now, that may not be possible, but that's why we're doing this webinar today, because there are things we can also still do virtually to share and spread the message about donation. You can also share the message to your family and friends. Have a conversation with your family. Those who are registered organ donors, does your family members know your decision? Have that conversation. It's not usually a conversation they have, but it's actually a conversation that we should start having. So those who are registered organ donors, please, if you have not, take the time and have the conversation with your family about donation. And ask them, your family, your friends, your church members, your link sisters, your sorority sisters, fraternity brothers, whatever the case may be, ask them if they're currently registered. And find out if they're not, make sure a reason with them why you made the decision to register. And you might be able to help them understand the importance of organ donation, particularly within the African American community. You can also invite a LifeLink representative like myself. Usually we would do a presentation like this live. Once again, thank God for virtual opportunities, for platforms like Zoom, where we're still able to share a message even when we can't be connected. And LifeLink provides all these services, promotional materials, at absolutely no slide, please. And this is just, once again, I want to thank the main chapter of the Links Incorporated. We have partnered on several initiatives throughout the last couple of years. And even the most recently, we see us with the mask, where we received the proclamation from Mayor Rickard, the mayor of Macon, for National Minority Donor Awareness Month. And even though we observe and celebrate National Minority Donor Awareness Month during the month of August, my role as an education specialist, I bring awareness and education to the importance of organ, eye, and tissue donation every day. So it doesn't just stop with the month of August. This is just the month that has been chosen to highlight the observance, but we bring awareness and education every day, because every day people are being added to the waiting list. And every day people who look like you and I are being added to the waiting list. And so, next slide, please. This is my contact information. I went through this presentation very fast just because we don't have enough time. Usually I go into a little more detail. But if anyone is interested in learning more about LifeLink, we're available for presentation, workshops, health fairs, Zoom meetings, you name it. My name is Ellen. This is my contact information. Please feel free to share my contact information, save my contact information, and reach out to me. I would love to be able to have a follow-up so we can be able to really have a more in-depth conversation. This morning was just an opportunity to bring awareness, education, and to a conversation that we usually don't talk about. Next slide, please. And just how you can stay connected as far as with LifeLink. We're on every social media platform. So if you're on social media, we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. So there are various ways as far as how you can be a part to spread and share the message of donation. Next slide. And thank you. If anyone has any questions, like I said, I know I had to go through this very fast. Please put your questions in the chat. And I think at the very end, after everyone has presented, there will be an opportunity to address questions as they're in the chat box. But I want to thank you again for your time. Those of you who are registered, thank you. And those who are not, please definitely feel free to reach out to me. I am easily accessible. Reach out to me anytime. If you're not in the Macon, Middle Georgia area, still reach out to me and I connect you to the LifeLink education specialist that serves your respective area. Thank you again for your time.
And we thank you so much, Aisha, for educating us this morning, as well as the great work, for the great work LifeLink is doing across the state to facilitate the donation and transplantation process. Well, now we'll hear from Stephanie Jackson. She is the Southeast Region Account Coordinator for Be the Match. Be the Match, operated by the National Marrow Donor Program, has managed the largest and most diverse marrow registry in the world. Welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you so much for having me to the Macon chapter of the Links, to Aisha. Thank you guys for inviting me today to talk a little bit about Be the Match. Let's go to our first slide. Okay. Most people haven't heard of Be the Match. I was one of those individuals. So about 2 years ago, when I was in the market for a new job, found out about what Be the Match was and how important it is to especially our community. And so we'll talk a little bit about those things today. Be the Match was created in 1987. Its purpose was to match potential stem cell and marrow donors with individuals who were waiting. So currently there's 12,000 patients per year who need some sort of transplant through marrow or stem cell of an unrelated donor. Next slide, please. Okay, so every 3 minutes, someone is diagnosed with a blood cancer or a blood disorder. Those blood cancers are leukemia, lymphoma. Blood disorders include sickle cell. So for individuals who have been diagnosed with these types of diseases, there is a cure. And that cure is through stem cell or marrow donation. Most people who need a life-saving transplant will not have a fully matched donor within their family. That's why Be the Match exists, so that we can provide space for individuals to join our registry in case they happen to be a match for someone who's waiting. Next slide. Okay, this is the health disparity. So currently, if you need a stem cell or marrow donation and you are Caucasian, you have a 77% chance of finding a match. That's generally because Caucasian individuals have no problem joining the registry. But if you look all the way to the other end, if you are Black, we only have a 23% chance of finding a match. That's basically because not enough of us are a part of the registry. And so when you look at that in context and compare African Americans really with the rest of the ethnic groups, you know, we are way low on the totem pole. So Asians are 41%, Hispanic 46, American Indian 57. So even they are kind of close to each other in number. And so why are we so concerned about joining the registry? Well, let's talk about it. If you'll go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So this is a composition of all of the individuals who are registered currently. So on the Be the Match registry, there are 22 million individuals. And so you'll see that 47% of those individuals are Caucasian. Black people, we only make up 4% of the registry. And again, I think that it's multiple reasons. One thing is that, again, I don't think enough of us know about what Be the Match is. But then when people find out about it, most times they don't have an opportunity to be educated on what it is. And so when you think about stem cell donation, and maybe go to the next slide, because I think that will kind of paint a better picture. Okay, so again, individuals who have been diagnosed with blood cancers or blood disorders, again, sickle cell, leukemia, lymphoma, for those individuals, a stem cell or marrow donation would actually cure them of their disease. The issue, especially again in our community, is when you think about someone being able to find that match, there has to be someone on the registry that is a DNA twin for that individual. So that's why, much like with organ donation, African Americans are typically good matches for African Americans who are waiting. Same thing with Hispanic, same thing with Caucasian. To become a registered donor is really easy. And honestly, most people who register will not actually be a match for someone who's waiting. So if you could imagine that there were 430 people in a really large auditorium, and if each of those individuals registered to be a part of the marrow registry, only one of those individuals would actually end up being a match for somebody. That's because it's really rare. So I think when you think about our community, you're fighting two different battles. So one, it's already rare to find a DNA match. But then if you do need a match, because not enough of us have registered, you only have a 23% chance of finding one. So let's talk about the different ways to donate, because unlike organ donation, this is actually a living donation if you happen to be a match for someone. So there are two ways to donate. One is peripheral blood stem cell donation, And that is really just like giving blood. Most people on the line have probably donated with the blood center here in Georgia. And definitely all of us have been to the doctor, so we've all given blood that way as well. So basically with that type of donation, you would, we would take your blood like you usually would, and then we would take the stem cells from your donation, and that's actually what is transplanted into the individual with leukemia or sickle cell. And that would be the thing that would save their life. And honestly, 70% of people who give are able to give in this manner. And so again, it's something really quick, it's outpatient. Just think, you know, you donating blood to a blood bank. Same concept. Marrow donation only happens about 23% of the time. Marrow donation is still an outpatient procedure, but basically the marrow would be extracted from your pelvic bone, and that is what would be transplanted into the individual with the blood cancer or with a blood disorder. Again, it is outpatient. The feedback that we've gotten is that it kind of feels like a little bit of pressure, but really a quick donation process, again, to actually reverse someone's cancer or to reverse someone's sickle cell. So basically those two ways. And again, most people who register will never even be a match for someone. But we want as many Black people to register as possible because that's the only way to save more Black lives. Okay, if you go to the next slide. Registration is easy, and it's something that you can do from the comfort of your own home. So we would start by texting. Right here we have a text to join code. Oh, let me say this. So we register individuals who are 18 to 44. The stem cells that you would donate are healthier within that age range. And so that's the first thing. And so if you are within that age range, and I remember seeing the poll at the beginning, it looks like only 25% of people are registered for Be the Match Registry. So I invite you now to just pull out your phones. You can text C2C SE to 61474. You'll get a reply with a link. You'll just basically go to that link and complete your online form. And we now have the opportunities where people can receive their swab kit in the mail. So basically you would fill out the online form, choose that you want your swab kit to be mailed to you, and just wait to receive it. When you receive your swab kit, it's just two cotton swabs. You would swab the inside of your mouth for 10 seconds and you would just mail it back. And honestly, that's as far as most people get, because again, to be a DNA match for someone is very rare. So like organ donation, you're looking to match blood type. For this type of donation, think DNA. And so, yeah, that's as far as most people will get, but we will keep that sample in a locked repository until you're 60 years of age to see if maybe if you're not a match right away for somebody, you might be a match within the coming year. And so I know that we'll be on here taking some questions in a little bit, but yeah, so definitely ask whatever questions you need to ask so that we can, one, be educated, be aware that this is another type of donation that is important that could, again, reverse someone's leukemia, reverse someone's lymphoma, or reverse that person's sickle cell. And that it's another way for us to be, for for us to be helpful to each other. And so again, we will hang with you guys for a little bit for some question and answer. But yeah, if you guys, again, will text C2CSE to 61474, you could start your journey to becoming part of the Be the Match Registry. Thanks.
And we thank you so much, Stephanie. Of course, we heard from Asia and Stephanie about the need for organ donors across our country and our state. However, National Minority Donor Awareness Month is more than just statistics and facts. It truly encompasses the people. Donors give those in our community and their families a selfless gift of hope and healing. And today, I'm going to speak with 3 individuals: a donor mother, a donor recipient, and a brave young lady who is awaiting a bone marrow transplant. And first, I'd like to introduce Miss Adria Strong. After her passing, her daughter, Brianna Brooks, became a donor hero through the donation of her organs. We'd like to welcome Ms. Strong. Thank you so much for joining us, and please know that we join with you in honoring the life of your daughter.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
I think most people know that being an organ donor is a good thing. It helps others, but for many families, as we heard earlier, there's fear, there's stigma attached to donating a loved one's organ. So what was your biggest fear?
My biggest fear was really about an open casket for Brianna. She was already a registered donor, so it wasn't the decision to donate, but just if donating, would she be able to have an open casket? So that was my biggest fear.
And so talk about the conversation that you and your daughter had about her wish to donate, and what do you tell families about making their donation wishes known? We heard earlier as well, you need to have that conversation.
Absolutely. Brianna, from the age of 5, wanted to be a doctor. Her pediatrician influenced her so much that that's what she wanted to do her entire life. In the age of getting a permit, we discussed donation. I said, fine, because I'm one as myself. She said she did specify her major organs. That's what she wanted to donate. And so that's what I did.
And how does it feel? How does it make you feel to know that your daughter has given people a second chance at life?
It's wonderful. It's a great feeling because it's her legacy continued. Her life in some way is still continued through those recipients who get to live longer and make memories with their family members. They don't have to go through what we went through as far as losing a loved one. And it's great for her children as well to know that their mother did an amazing thing, and the lives that she saved, being connected to 2 of her 4 recipients was wonderful, being able to connect with those individuals and hear what they're doing. And I was happy and proud of her. I'm extremely proud of her. So yes, absolutely.
Now, I have a confession. I'm aware of your story. And I'm aware of your story because I interviewed Mr. Andrew Hobbs here in Albany, I want to say sometime last year. He is one of the recipients who received the gift of life through the donation of your daughter's organs. And he is a liver transplant recipient. We're going to come back and maybe ask some questions, some additional questions to you a little bit later on. But we want to introduce Andrew. And Andrew and I are now Facebook friends as a result, so I can kind of keep up with what's going on in his life. So Andrew, thank you for joining us.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good to see you, good to see you. Well, many people may never hear their doctors actually say those words. You need an organ transplant. So how did it feel to hear those words, and how did you prepare?
Well, it was kind of surreal when I first heard those words because it was combined with cancer. And so it was like a double whammy when I received the information about my organ transplant. But it was very hard. I was out from home, I was alone, and it was just a hard thing to deal with at the time once I found out that I needed an organ transplant.
And how important is family support and cheering you on during that transplant journey?
It's most likely the most important thing, because without that support, you can lose the hope, you can lose the drive to live, and many different issues, depression, and many different things can arise just from you not having that support that you need to get through a situation as serious as an organ transplant.
Now, also, you know, people are nervous, and some of those fears and concerns were addressed a little bit earlier, you know, today, about people not wanting to maybe check the box on their driver's license or having that discussion with the family. What do you say, and what you are an ambassador now for organ donation, and so what do you say to people, you know, who are a little nervous about signing up?
I would say to those people, look at me. I'm a recipient. I'm living a second life that I really at one point didn't think I was going to be living. Think about your family, look at your kids, your mom, your father, your siblings, and think if they needed an important transplant, or, you know, they were going through something that someone else or even you could help them with. Would you do it? And so I encourage people to transplant, you know, be a donor, eye tissue, you know, marrow, whatever you can do in order to keep someone else's legacy come and keep your legacy going at the same time.
And so what does it mean to have, you know, met Ms. Strong and developed this relationship with her?
Oh, it's very important. I love her. I love the kids, the family. We met up. We've been together and we talk, and you know, I just love her. Her spirit. She's the most encouraging person I know. You know, with the selflessness of her daughter, and I see where she get it from, because she get it from her mother.
And if we can quickly go back to Ms. Strong, I want to ask you the same thing. How does it feel, you know, to have developed a relationship with those who your daughter has given a second chance? Ms. Strong, you still there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you see me and hear me?
Yes, I see you now. Yes. Well, talk about what it means to you.
I'm so proud of Andrew. I believe each and every recipient of her organs, they were, and the fact that he has continued to share his story. And I always tell him it's important to share your story. I'm glad you share Brianna's, but yours is just as powerful because they're connected together. And he makes me proud because he's doing what Brianna would want him to do, you know, to share her story, to share your story, encourage people to see that one minority saved another minority through the gift of life. Mm-hmm. And so it's just proud. You know, he's family. I love him and his family. And so it just makes me feel good.
Well, we thank both of you for sharing your story. And let me just say again, he is an excellent ambassador, because he has been talking about his experience here in Southwest Georgia as well. And again, you may be getting questions later, so I'll hang right there. But while many people have received the gift like Andrew, there are numerous people who are on the transplant list across the country. They're awaiting the news of a match. Now, one of those awaiting that news is Ms. Brianna Stevens. This brave young lady is awaiting a bone marrow transplant, and we want to say welcome to Brianna.
Thank you for having me.
And so many people may never hear those words, that you need a bone marrow transplant. What was your reaction?
Well, I was really, really young when I found out I needed a bone marrow transplant. So of course I didn't really know the impact it would have on my life then. So when I went to the doctor's office, they would basically be talking to my parents and not me. And then once I got a little older, they was like, you know, you got to understand, you have to listen to what the doctors are saying now. And when I finally started to take in what was going on with my life, I was a little scared. I think it's natural, but I didn't stop living my life like I normally live my life. So I didn't have any fears when I found out.
May I ask, how old were you when they first determined that you needed that bone marrow transplant?
About 12, and
Okay,
I'm 26 now.
Okay, all right, so you're still awaiting.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so what is your biggest fear, and what have been the bright spots in all of this? Are you also an ambassador trying to encourage people, you know, to sign up on the registry?
Yes, ma'am. That's my goal, is to get more people to become more aware of what's going on and how they can get on the registry. Thanks to Miss Stephanie and Miss Aisha, they've drawn me more to why it's so important and getting people to become a part of the registry. My biggest fear has now become that we're getting people to become a part of the registry, but when it's time for them to help someone, are they still going to be interested? And if that person is not the person that made them join the registry, would they still do it? That's become my biggest fear. I pretty much don't have any other fears other than me not being able to get a transplant and something happened seriously and I have to leave my son, and him not understanding that being that he's so young.
Well, what would you share with someone considering becoming a bone marrow donor, which is a living donor gift?
I would encourage everyone to think, just like Andrew said, to think about it being a relative to them or a friend. And would you do it for them? Would you want somebody to give someone a second chance at life if you could, by just simply donating the blood or the
or what's
bone
needed?
marrow?
What's needed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we just say we will continue to keep you in prayer, and so I mean, how long do the doctors think it'll be before you get that transplant? I mean, are there any promising donors out there right now?
We don't have a time preference right now. Well, I need it ASAP, but
Okay.
we don't really know when I would find one. It's very important that I get it soon, but we're looking for the perfect one.
All right. Well, we thank you so much, and of course, we continue to keep you in our thoughts and prayers, and hopefully that will come through ASAP, as soon as possible. Organ, eye, tissue, and bone marrow transplants help to save lives, restore health, and give hope to thousands each year. However, one of the goals of National Minority Donor Awareness Month is to highlight the importance of health and wellness, to support having healthy donors and decrease the need for life-saving transplants when possible. Now, we'd like to welcome Miss Rosa Smith, is coming up next. She's a registered nurse at Navicent Health, working with cardiovascular patients. She will share with us some tips on how we all can improve our overall health and our well-being. Rosa Smith, welcome to you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the Macon chapter of Links for inviting me for this opportunity to share about good health. You do great work. The recipients and donors alike, thank you so much for your service to our community. I have been a nurse for a long time and have pretty much just slid my way into about the last 25 years into cardiac nursing. But just as a nurse and just being a person and a person of color, knowing how important it is for us to be healthy. So I want to talk to, and there are things that we cannot do to control health. Maybe some of the recipients may already know this, but what I want to concentrate on today are the things that we can do something about. I'm going to give us a list, and then I'll go back and just generally talk about it. And it's so much on each topic that it's just, we can't cover everything at this in all this short time, but it's a place to start, and it's a place for you to get more information, and it's a place for you to be aware and to know what you can do, because what I concentrate on is what I can do. What can you do for you? We need to do some things that we can't do anything about, but my concentration is on these. And this is, I'm going to give us a list, and then I'll talk about them specifically. Smoking, and I'm going to make one statement, two statements about smoking, and I'm going to move on to the other things. That if you don't smoke, please don't start. If you smoke, please find a way to stop. There are your healthcare provider, the American Heart Association, the CDC, the health department, even people that with the links will be able to help you with ways to quit smoking if you smoke. But if you've never smoked, don't do it. I'm a former smoker. It was one of the worst habits I had in my life, but I had it. And I was able to, I heard the right sermon and I quit. So I can fuss at people who smoke and tell them, please stop. Please stop. The other thing now I'm going to give us a list. High blood pressure. If we control and manage these things, we can really have a healthy life. Healthy life. High blood pressure, lack of regular physical exercise, managing our high blood cholesterol, obesity or being overweight, diabetes, and one that's really has come into play in the last few months, and that's stress. With all the things that are going on, not only being concerned about being a recipient and waiting on an organ transplant, but just the things in general, the pandemic, the political community that we're having to be concentrated on. So what I want us to do, so now I'm going to go back and look at the things that we can control. These are specific. There's some things that are specific to high blood pressure. So one of the things that if you have high blood pressure that's been diagnosed by a doctor and you have a prescribed medicine, the most important thing you can do if you're on a prescription is to take that medicine religiously at the same time every day. If it's once a day, pick an hour. If it's 9 a.m., 6 a.m., and take that medicine every day at the same time. If it's twice a day, pick a 12-hour period and take that medicine at 7 a.m., 7 p.m., 8 a.m., 8 p.m. So high blood pressure, if you're on medicine, that's one of the most important things you can do. Generally now, if you have high blood pressure after taking your medicine and trying to avoid high blood pressure, and this is one of the things, there are so many things that are specific to African Americans or to the Black community, and high blood pressure is one. We have an overwhelming propensity to have high blood pressure. It is almost as if when we were born, we're on first base and having high blood pressure. If you go to a dialysis center, you'll see that about 90% of the people that are there are African American, and some of it is because of uncontrolled high blood pressure and some other things. So one of the things you can do, take your medicine. The other thing that you can do is be aware, and this is not just if you have high blood pressure, but it's also to prevent it. Be aware of how much salt you put in your body. For the African American, it should be for all day, a 24-hour period, less than a teaspoonful. And that's about 1,500 milligrams. And so if I give you the bullets, I need you to go and find out what 1,500 milligrams look like to you. It's about a teaspoonful, but that includes the foods that are in packages, that includes the foods that you cook, that the salt you cook with, so it includes everything that you put in your mouth for 24 hours. So take your medicine, watch your salt intake. And then the next thing is high blood cholesterol. Cholesterol is like a sticky, fatty substance. If you had to identify it or describe it, it would look like the shavings from a candle, or what I sometimes call cooked rice. That's the consistency. The thing about cholesterol is we must have it. We have to have it to digest our food. The good news about the cholesterol is our body produces as much as we need. Where we get in trouble is when we add things to our body that increases our cholesterol level. So some of the things that are specific to help you lower your cholesterol is learn to read your food labels. And anytime you see cholesterol, keep as the lowest amount you possibly can. Another two things to look for are the fats. There's a saturated fat and there's a trans fat. Trans fat is a made-up fat that is in most of our baked goods. What I want us to do is to get to the point where we have no trans fat in our diet at all, or at least start to decrease. Find your way to decrease it. So read these labels, these baked cakes that Publix make, the baked goods that Walmart sell, everything that's baked usually has some trans fat in it. So if you get to the point where you just back out of it, read those labels, go down the trans fat, none. Then the saturated fats, you can have some, and we get that from animal products like milk, whole milk, and things like that, so we can decrease those things. So that's cholesterol. And then the foods that you eat, whole grain foods, vegetables, make colorful vegetables, your greens, your reds, your yellows, your oranges, and then also fruits, apples, pineapples, bananas, things like that. Dried beans and nuts, almonds, chickpeas, kidney beans. And I list these things specific, but the list is endless in the things that are good for us. And I know we whine, because I do too, because most of the things that taste good are not good for us. And so what we have to do, especially in the South, and especially as African Americans, we just simply have to retrain our taste buds. So what you can do instead of taking everything away is add some good, take away some bad, add some more good, take away some more bad, until most of the time, most of the things that you eat are good and healthy for you. And then just check with your healthcare provider. Again, the American Heart Association, the FDA, they're just so glad, and even Links are just so glad to help you with a list of foods that are just absolutely good for your body and actually taste good when we learn how to do that. Okay, the other one is diabetes. Again, if you're diabetic, and a diabetes is simply high blood sugar that's prolonged in your system for a long time. There's different kinds of diabetes, gestational, that ladies get when we're pregnant. Did not have it before, but when you get pregnant, then it usually goes away after the birth of the baby. There's type 1, where the body makes no insulin. So all the insulin we get, this when we have to take the shots and the pills most of the time. And the other one is type 2, which means that your pancreas is just not producing enough, or you're resistant to the insulin that we have. And then oftentimes that's medicine. And I tell you, a key to that is exercise. So if you're on medicines for diabetes, you're prescribed for it, please take your medicine. And another thing to do that sometimes people just forget, because sometimes diabetes and hypertension does not start off being painful. So we don't, well, I'll check it today, I'll check it tomorrow, and it was a little bit this, and I think I can control it. So check your blood sugar, take your medicines as you need it. And another thing, the other one is stress. Reduce your stress. And do you know that something as simple as, and I did it actually while I was waiting, I try to remember to do it several times a day, whether I'm feeling stressed or not. And it is to take slow, deep breaths. Do it for 2 or 3 minutes. Mid-morning, cut out, turn the television off if the political scene is driving you nuts, if the pandemic numbers you can't stand, and everybody you know that you look at suspicious has got the COVID-19, turn off the television some, take a walk. Now, so these are the things that we talked about. Don't smoke, high blood pressure, and the lack of physical exercise. Remember, these are the things that you can do something about. So get to walking 30 minutes a day. The American Heart Association recommends 30 minutes a day, at least 5 times a week. And when people do it, they will find over time, but only with your healthcare providers, them telling you to not take the medicine. Sometimes people have been able to come off diabetic medicines. Sometimes they've been able to come off of the blood pressure medicine. But please, please, please do not start walking today and stop taking your medicine tomorrow. Let this be guided by you and your healthcare provider. So take your medicine. So these are the things: don't smoke, control high blood pressure, get exercise or physical exercise. If walking is one of the most simple things, all you need is a pair of shoes, a good pair of walking shoes, and just walk. And if you've never done it before, if you've not done any exercise recently, please check with your healthcare provider. Make sure that you can do it, or what most of the time they're going to say yes. And if you haven't, start 10 minutes and then do 20 minutes. Or do 10 minutes at a time, 3 times a day, or 10 minutes at a time, 4 times a day. And before you know it, you will be in an exercise routine. The YouTube is full of low impact exercises and toning and things we can do just to be healthy. So get active and control your diabetes and manage your stress. So now, overall, for everything that I've listed: high blood pressure, high cholesterol, being overweight, being a diabetic, reducing your stress, what you have seen a common thread. The common thread is to eat healthy, learn to eat whole grains, work with your healthcare provider, work with the dietitian. There's so many people and organizations who want us to have healthy foods. As I said, add a good one and decrease a bad one. And the other one is the healthy eating and your exercise. Consult with your physician if you've not exercised in a while or this is new to you. But I am so excited for what is happening with this chapter in Macon and the recipients. So what it's like for you, if you're a recipient and if you're working on a healthy body, what you're doing is preparing this house that God has given you for this new organ that you're going to get. So if you're already working on and you're exercising regularly and you're eating right most of the time, when you get that new organ, it's just going to just take off and do great, and you'll do better longer. So be encouraged, decrease your stress, eat right most of the time, and everybody can have a guilt-free day, but don't let it be every day. Pick a day once a month, every Tuesday in a month, and if you got to have a piece of that chocolate cake, then do it. But we have to be proactive and we have to be intentional about our health, just as we is about anything else. So thank you for this opportunity to share that, and I'll answer any questions that I can.
All right, and we say a huge thank you, Miss Rosa Smith. We just have to just do it, right? Just do it. And also, a big all of our panelists today for their perspectives on organ, tissue, eye, and bone marrow donation and the importance of health and well-being. So now we're going to take a few minutes and answer our questions from our webinar attendees. And if you've not already done so, please register your questions in the Q&A feature.
Good afternoon, everyone. Right now, I think this question will go to Ms. Jackson. There's a question. I registered for the bone marrow registry many years ago in college in Virginia. How can I confirm that I'm still registered?
Yes. So what you can do, does the individual remember, well, you know what? Let me just give this 800 number. Hold on just a second. And then, so this is the number to patient services, and you can contact them to ensure that you are still on the registry. Now, one little fun fact is they have, hold on, okay. They weren't as good at staying in communication with individuals who were waiting or who had registered as they are now. And so they are doing a much better job at this point in staying in contact, just to kind of keep people engaged. Because to Brianna's point, we have people who register and, you know, they may not hear from somebody for like 5 to 10 years. But then when they receive that call, they decide that they don't want to go through with the donation for various reasons. And so the thing to remember in that instance is that you might be the only match for that one individual. So thank you for wanting to check to make sure that you are still on the registry. That 800 number is 1-800-627-7692. And if we could make that available via email or something, so that make sure she got the right information.
Absolutely. And those were the only question that we had. I'm going to double check in our chat box. And I do not see any other questions. But if we do have any questions, please make sure to register them.
Is it possible to ask a question on our end?
Yes, yes.
Okay, and you know, we are dealing with COVID. So much loss. And I guess this is directed with Aisha. Have you, or do you have knowledge in terms of numbers? Have you seen an increase in organ donations in the midst of COVID, where families are making that decision once somebody passes away? That and I don't know. I guess the organs are acceptable, if I'm not mistaken. But or decision to donate their loved ones' organs in the midst of COVID.
Yes, thank you. That's a great question, Carla. COVID definitely did cause a decrease actually in donation because, of course, now that's another layer of testing that has to be done on a potential donor. So if that donor tests positive for COVID, it automatically rules them out being able to be a donor. So from March through May, there was a significant decrease in donations as a result. However, we did get the numbers as far as June and July, and it seems like we're back as far as on track compared to 2019, same time, as far as having donors. So it's gone back up. We're back where we once were, at least for the months of June and July. But there was definitely a downturn because also too, during March, April, May, most of the transplant centers had ceased any transplants. So that was put on hold as well. So, for about 3 months, we saw a significant decline in donors, as well as there was pretty much the whole transplantation process, organ and tissue donation was basically stopped. But then June, July, we saw things begin to level back up. But COVID does play a part even with organ donation, because now I get a chance to go through much of my presentation, but a donor has to be tested significantly, even if before they can their organs can be donated. And so COVID now adds another layer to that. So like I said, if a potential donor does test positive for COVID-19, they will not be able to donate.
All right, thank you so much for that. And thank you again to all of our panelists for the sharing the information and stories for National Minority Donor Awareness Month. Today's webinar could not have been made possible without the collaboration of so many. We want to say thank you to Chapter President Sylvia McGee and the members of the Macon chapter of the Links Incorporated, also Aisha Ellen and her team at LifeLink of Georgia, Stephanie Jackson and her team at Be the Match, and now Valeria Cray, a member of the Macon chapter of the Links, will join us with more information on how you can be educated and bring awareness to organ, tissue, eye, and bone marrow donation. And Valeria Cray, you've got a personal story here as well.
Correct. Thank you, Carla. On behalf of the Macon, Georgia chapter of the Links, I want to thank all of our presenters for a wealth of information that you've shared. Thank you to Ms. Shadria Strong for sharing from your heart how you honored the life of your daughter, Brianna Brooks, by extending her legacy of life as a donor hero. Thank you to Mr. Andrew Cobbs for graciously sharing your journey to healing as a recipient of a liver transplant. And thank you to Ms. Brianna Stevens for sharing your journey as you await for a bone marrow transplant. We want to assure you that we will continue the outreach and get the message out that we need more donors, bone marrow included. Thank you, Carla Heath Sands, our wonderful facilitator, who graciously and professionally facilitated an engaging learning opportunity in this new digital world. I thank the audience for the time that you spent today to increase your awareness of the need for organ, eye, and tissue donations and transplantation, especially in the minority community. And thank you to the co-sponsors, Life Links of Georgia and Be the Match, for the work behind the scenes to create this presentation. As you said, I too am a recipient of the gift of hope and life. In 2005, I was diagnosed with an eye disease called Fuchs endothelial dystrophy that causes the cells of the cornea to degenerate. The cure for this disease is cornea transplants. I am forever indebted to the donors and the families of those donors that made the gift possible that restored my vision. The purpose of these presentations, the one like today, the National Minority Donor Awareness Month, is to first highlight the importance of health, wellness, and developing healthy habits to decrease the need for life-saving transplants. But the reality is that most of us know personally someone who is on dialysis or living with an illness that threatens organs, illnesses like diabetes and high blood pressure. In fact, I think it's safe to say that we are generally aware of the need for life-saving organ donations. The results of the survey indicate that many of us are aware of it, but our goal is to get the word out. It is our hope that this presentation has increased that awareness and has given you information to help you make educated and informed decisions about organ, eye, and tissue donations. We encourage you to continue to learn about eye and organ and tissue donations through upcoming events. In November, you will hear about Donor Sabbath, where we will reach out to the churches to help us get the word out. February 14th is National Donor Day, and April is National Donate Life Month. The ultimate goal of all of these events and activities is to increase the number of donors, which will ultimately save lives, especially in the minority community. We hope that you will say yes to organ and tissue donation by registering at the link that you see on the screen, the Macon, Georgia chapter of the Links website, www.macongeorgialinks.org. And finally, this presentation will be available to review and share at the Macon Links chapter Facebook and YouTube pages. And I say thank you again for your participation. Have a wonderful day and stay safe.